that the audience really did start to identify with him and sympathise with him. There's a very interesting story about Lawrence in this fight scene that's coming up, which is that I remember this really distinctly. He was really concerned about ending up in the water, in this puddle of water, because he apparently, or had at the time apparently, a bit of a water phobia. And so we were doing the scene where he had to end up virtually being drowned in this puddle of water or his character ends up almost being drowned by Eric Draven. And it was quite tricky to shoot with someone who's scared of water, I can tell you. We realised that he was discovering his powers in this scene. He was kind of elated at the same time as trying to get this guy and kill this guy, but he's kind of almost elated to be alive again, and not only that, but to have these extraordinary abilities now. So it was difficult to balance both of those things, but I think Brandon found the balance, and just the shot where he lands on the ground and you focus in on him and he's laughing at how kind of strangely, perversely wonderful the situation that he's found himself in. It's kind of it's sort of a lunatic asylum laugh, but there is some joy in there as well at the fact that he has come back as this immensely powerful creature.
Our game was silly.
In this particular instance, and generally with Brandon in this film, he really he was driving a lot of the time. The other actors had an enormous respect for him physically and his fighting, and there was, it's his, his pedigree. I mean, he's whoop anyone's ass basically. So to a certain extent, and that's the role that he's playing in these scenes, he's in control, and for me the fun of it was to see what craziness Brandon had come up with, and he came up with some really off-the-wall stuff, because having, watched his fair share of action movies and having been involved with his fair share of action movies, he was trying to push the language of that a little bit, and trying to just make it original, and so that was the joy of it, is to see what he'd come up with. And obviously then I'd often tailor something in a certain way if I couldn't shoot it, or we didn't have enough time to do something in a certain way. But no, it was a great experience in that respect. There were conflicting forces going on, because we were watching John Woo movies at the same time as, and watching like some great Chinese sort of fantasy movies as well, where there was a lot of wire work and all that. I think part of the thing is we couldn't afford to do wire work. We may have done more if we actually had the time to shoot it, because it is quite time consuming. But I think both he and I wanted it to feel kind of raw and almost documentary in a way. I was aware of the Warriors and David Patrick Kelly's wonderful performance in that film, and so I was really pleased when he was suggested as someone for this film. He originally read for Top Dollar, in fact, and was pretty great as Top Dollar. And for a moment, I was in a difficult situation, because I really wanted to have Michael Wincott in the film as well. And it took a little bit of convincing to get David to do T-Bird, but he came around. He found something great in that character and really went for it. Bai Ling just basically came in and read for us. I had not seen any of her work at the time, and she was, she did a great job. She was scary. She really was. She created a wonderfully kind of perverse character. And actually seeing this after all this time is, it really did work. They're the most bizarre couple you would possibly imagine. Originally they were kind of seen much more as a brother and sister, and I guess there's it's a little hard to believe that they would ever be a brother and sister now, but we just felt that it was the perfect combination. Violence is a very overused, but very obviously extremely powerful way to affect an audience. When we were trying to think of the ultimate thing that, the ultimate expression of these characters' perversity, we had to really stretch ourselves to a certain extent, and that's what we came up with. It's purely the concept that is what is so frightening. I think the original concept in the screenplay was that he is there to fight for revenge, for justice. He's not there to do anything else. And if he chooses to become involved with the living or to help the living in any way, his powers will be taken away from him. So this whole subplot with the little girl and her mother kind of were instrumental in expressing that idea. But that part of the film kind of was excised, but I still think that subplot is actually quite relevant, because it is again partly the soul, the heart and the soul of the film. And I think both of those characters, Darla and the little girl, are bring a lot to that in that respect. It wasn't upmost in my concerns to create a franchise, but I was aware of the fact that it could possibly do that, and I mean, you certainly don't want to make that impossible. It would have been kind of naive not to. You could see all the elements there, If it was ever going to survive as a franchise, it certainly needed those things to. I mean, if Eric Draven was going to come back again, as he undoubtedly would have, there had to be some layers to it. There had to be some reason for him to come back. Look, if things had turned out otherwise, I would have probably been delighted to be making The Crow 2. It would have been terrific, and I think. If Brandon had been involved with that, we would have, made a great movie.
I'm looking for something in an engagement ring. Gold.
You're looking for a coroner.
Oh, he was so fast. Brandon was like, he moved between frames, and it was quite amazing to see him on the set, because in a film you assume that there's some sort of trickery involved at times, and he did things that you just could not believe were actually happening in front of you, like that shot just there where he throws himself up off the counter. Doesn't seem like much, but even just that, in the time that he does it, I mean, he would probably win an Olympic event making that little jump up there, And that's him, it's not it's not a double or anything. It's he's doing all this stuff. I love seeing the guy. I think he's great to watch, and